All right, welcome everyone. I'm so glad to see y'all, and I'm really excited to be learning with Mary Brown and Sister Bright Spirit from Life Pieces to Masterpieces. I think we're all going to greatly benefit from the wisdom that they have to share with us tonight. But just to start, as some of you may know, because I recognize each of you from our previous webinars, but just a quick overview of who we are at Inspired Teaching. Our mission and what we are trying to have been working to do since 1995 is to ensure that every child and teacher love going to school. And that is a transformative approach that we are trying to, you know, have an end goal of. And we want to ensure that school is something that everyone looks forward to attending. So we have created the inspired teaching approach, and that includes our 4 I's, which are intellect, inquiry, imagination, and integrity. And basically, what we feel is that the 4 I's become central to our learning experience when 5 core elements are present in the classroom through what the teachers are teaching. So we talk about mutual respect between the teacher and the student, opportunities for children to develop and demonstrate their expertise, lessons filled with purpose in which students and teacher practice persistence and take an active role in their learning. And then in these classrooms, joy is what undergirds the hard work of learning, and teachers know students are progressing because they're always using multiple forms of assessment, not just paper pencil tests. So when we move deeper into what our work, the framework of our work is, we have developed something central to the inspired teaching approach, which is our ABCDEs of learner needs. And we feel that in order for students and teachers to be motivated to learn, we have to have these certain needs met in order to be able to show up in that way in the classroom. And so these needs, as you can see, include autonomy, belonging, competence, developmental appropriateness, engagement, and fun. And when I read these to you, I want you to think about what in your own experience right now, as a learner within your field, as a teacher, which of these needs are being met for you and which ones are not being met? What does that tell you about how you feel about your work? With us and with our students, when any of these are not being met, it decreases our motivation to learn. And so, if we want to make change within school, being able to identify these needs and then to be able to respond to those needs appropriately allows for us to increase the levels of motivation that we're seeing within our classrooms and within ourselves to show up and do our jobs. So, in a follow up email that we send after the session, we're going to include this tool, which is a basically a little self analysis for students to be able to see where their needs are being met and where they're not being met. It's a great way for them to begin evaluating their own emotional awareness and to be able to recognize what needs they have and how they are or are not being met. But they also kind of begin to develop a sense of agency over their learning, and that leads to the ability to self manage. So this leads to our focus for today, self-management, or stress management through self-management. And we've taken these focuses for our webinars for the year from Castle's framework. And in their framework, they talk specifically about self-management, where it is the ability to manage one's emotions, thoughts, and behaviors effectively in different situations and to achieve goals and aspirations. So, we today are going to be diving into this framework with 2 experts from Life Pieces to Masterpieces. Their names are Mary Brown and Eka Suri. But before we get their thoughts on this topic, we just want to explore this a little bit about ourselves. So, when you think about yourself right now, what gets in the way of your own self management and stress management? And you can come on and talk, or if you'd like to go on the chat, you can do that as well.
I'm seeing in the chat that Carliana talked about doing yoga. and relaxation techniques. And I would share that for me, that's something that I'm trying to develop a more regular practice of, to deal with stress management. The kind of yoga that I do combines breathing and meditation with the movement. I mean, all yoga does some elements of those, but the breath work and the meditation are a big part of it. And I actually have found that for me, my days when I do that are dramatically different from the days when I don't. And the trick is, how do you figure out how to turn that into a regular practice as opposed to something that you just kind of fit in?
And I think it's also important to recognize that when we are implementing these types of self-management strategies, these practices for mindfulness and for stress management, we can face challenges with being able to consistently stick with it, but then also being able to really listen to what our bodies and what our inner voice is telling us about what we need. And that comes with practice. And so, building that habit, being able to do it more regularly, naturally will get you in the headspace to be able to say, this is what I'm stressed about right now. And this is how I can move toward reconciling whatever I'm feeling. So, we're going to move forward to an activity, and this is actually something that helps with kind of being proactive ahead of class before, kids come in and are able to have disruptive behaviors or whatever it may be because of unmet needs. When you start class with practice in mindfulness and breathing, it kind of gets everybody off on the right foot before the day begins, so that even if we encounter negative negative stressors or any kind of trigger that would cause negative behavior, this would kind of be able to get them to reset and really identify what their needs are before the class begins. So before we start, I just want you to kind of take a deep breath, get comfortable in your seats. You can close your eyes if you would like to, but basically you're going to follow my directions and you're going to focus deeply on your breath and your breathing. So first, we're going to take a deep breath in. Now exhale to the count of 4. Now hold your lungs empty for a 4 count. Then inhale at the same pace to a count of 4. Now hold air in your lungs for a count of 4. Exhale to a count of 4, and then begin again. Notice how this feels in your body. And remember that what feels right to you and what your 4 count is may be different from those around you, and that's okay. Studies show that incorporating mindfulness into the learning experience for children has a positive impact not only on their mental health, but also on their academic performance. So, starting class with a few minutes of stillness, breathing, and quiet reflection can set a powerful tone for the day and for yourself.
All right, now we're going to share one more activity with you before we jump into talking to tonight's speakers. And this is an activity that I was introduced to actually during COVID. I was working closely with a school where they brought in a speaker to talk to the whole staff and share a video that we'll share with you again in the email following this session. That is about it's about something called conscious leadership. But this particular video, or the message of this video, really struck me, and we've turned it into an activity that you can do with your students. And it focuses on the idea of defining or describing our state of stress or our state of overwhelm in a really simple way. The idea of when you're above the line and when you're below the line. And so I find it very clarifying for myself if I'm having a moment where I'm kind of like, I'm feeling a particular way. Am I above the line or am I below the line? And actually, when you start incorporating this into your language and your conversation with people within your school, or you share it as language with your students, it can be a really great shared language for articulating how we're feeling and where we might need some help. So when you are above the line, you're in that state of being open and curious and committed to learning. This is the place where creativity is flourishing, where I'm wondering about the world around me and I'm thinking about the things that I can contribute to it. When we're below the line, we're closed, defensive, and this is a really important part of it. We're committed to being right. So I'll share with you the video is kind of great because it's one of those ones where they draw everything while they're explaining the idea of above and below the line. This is just a snapshot from what they're talking about there, but you can kind of see the words and the language that describe being above the line or below the line. And one of the really important points that they make in the film is that being below the line in that state of focusing on wanting on being right, actually is like a safety defense mechanism. It's kind of when we get into our fight or flight mode. It's not necessarily that it's bad. It's just that when we're in that state of super overwhelm, of being defensive and closed and protecting ourselves, we don't have as much space in ourselves to be able to be creative, to ask questions, to have curiosity, and to learn. And so in our own classrooms, you can think about so many times, just thinking about it this way: when you have a student who is below the line, what does that look like? When you have students that are above the line, what does that look like? And developing this language and thinking about that also invites the question of, what do I need in order to be above the line? And for us, that's where we introduce those ABCDEs that Meg shared, thinking about those needs that must be met in order for me to be in a space where I feel open, committed to learning, and curious. If you think about that, like openness in general is makes leaves us a little unprotected. We're in a very receptive state, but it also means that we're not worrying as much about our protection and our safety. So we have to be in an environment that creates that kind of protection and safety. When we're below the line and we're on the defense and we're making sure that everything is okay because we don't feel like the world is okay, what does that learning environment look like? What needs are not being met in that space? And so one of the tools that we'll share with you that goes with the activity connected to above and below the line is to have students kind of use this as a way to evaluate their own experiences throughout a day. And in our activity, we have different lengths of time. So the idea of thinking about your day yesterday, and using this line, sort of putting some dots or drawing some lines above and below to show where you were at different times of the day. So before school, were you in that open space above the line, committed to learning, or were you below the line in that space of being committed to being right or defensive? And goodness knows, the day after we had to push our clocks forward and lose an hour, probably a lot of us were not feeling above the line when we got up this morning. But what you can do is sort of look over the course of the day. It's an interesting way to think about your day and then reflect on, at the times when I was below the line, was it harder for me to hear what other people were saying? Do I remember that I got into a fight with somebody at lunch, a disagreement with somebody at lunch? Why was that? Was it maybe because I was hungry? Was it maybe because I was tired? Did I feel better afterwards? And using this as a way to kind of look at your day, students can then, and you for yourself, you can also analyze, like, what were the conditions that helped me to stay above the line? And arguably those were places where my needs were more met. What are some things that I can do to make sure that I am above the line more often than I am below the line? And then when we look at that, even within a class period, having students think about that within a class period. If you're teaching high school and you've got students, let's say, on a block schedule, so you have the luxury of having them for 90 minutes, can they analyze within a class period when they were above and below the line? Again, interspersing this with an understanding of their needs. If they feel like they were below the line, let's just imagine, for me, a subject that often made me feel below the line was when I got into higher math classes. The logic of some of those classes was difficult for me. If I had a problem that I was really struggling with, There were many times when I was below the line, and that was because I didn't necessarily have the scaffolding that would have helped me to feel curious and open to learning. So if students are able to add this to their vocabulary and have it as a tool for even communicating with their teacher, they might be in a better place to be able to say, I'm feeling really stressed out right now and I'm feeling below the line because the way that you're explaining that problem to me is not working for my brain. And I would really appreciate if maybe we could try to explain it a different way, or can I work with a partner on this? So these are just tools. I'm really interested. I do a lot of work actually with high school students. And I think it starts even younger in giving young people the tools to be able to articulate what they're thinking and feeling. Because I think a lot of times for our students, their experiences with stress and overwhelm are largely a product of lack of communication from the teacher with the student, not being able to really understand one another and not being able to articulate what their needs are. So this is one of those tools that can help with that, not only with the young people that we work with, but also I find it very helpful for myself. So we'll share more of that with you.
So now, very excitingly, I get to introduce you to our guest for this evening. First, we have Mary Brown, who is one of the co founders and the executive director of Life Pieces to Masterpieces, which is a nonprofit working to develop character and leadership, unlock potential, and prepare Black and Brown boys and young men to transform their lives and communities with creative expression and an each one teach one mentoring at the core. So, Mary, if you would like, please tell us about yourself and what brought you to this work.
Okay, great. It's great to be here, everyone. Thank you. Thank you so very much, Meg and Jenna. Good to see you there, Denise. And put in the chat my little buddy there, my little canine buddy. That's he's probably, he or she is probably a part of your stress manager. If you could put that name in the chat so we could presence your little canine there. Having your energy here, Emily, Tiana. Is that Carliana? Am I pronouncing it properly? Please put it in the chat if you don't want to use your voice tonight. My name is Mary Brown. I'm the co-founder and executive director of Life Pieces to Masterpieces. For 29 years, we've been changing how Black and Brown boys and young men have been seeing themselves. We've been changing how the world sees these boys and young men. And now our amazing boys and young men are changing the world's understanding of shared humanity. Our North Star has always been for 29 years shared humanity. And we stand by that, and we stand by that today. And we, over the years, not only do we have a signature form of artwork, I have a little piece of it behind me now, acrylic paint on canvas that's sewn together, a metaphor for life. We don't know how we come into this world. We don't ask for the zip code. We don't, but here we are, and it's a splash on our canvas of life. But through our thoughts, words, and actions, we can change our life pieces into masterpieces. And we've been doing this work successfully for 29 years, and we have a mosaic of humanity that has surrounded our boys and young men and our community. And we're thrilled to share with you today just little tidbits of what has helped us in the form of what we refer to as Color Me Community. And with that, I'm going to turn it on over. We have soul names, by the way. Mine is Sister Sunshine, that's given by the community, and Sister Bright Spirit. Now, want to make it clear that absolutely that's kind of like the baseline. But if anyone doesn't want to be brother, sister, we just call you by your name, and you're our sibling, you're a family member, because we want to make room for everyone. So, Sister Bright Spirit.
Thank you, Sister Sunshine. Hello, everyone. I'm Sister Bright Spirit as my soul name, given to me by the community of Life Pieces to Masterpieces. And my given name by my parents is Ekta Suri. I'm really excited to be here with all of you today. I am the Color Me Community Manager at Life Pieces. And what that is Life Pieces has been around, like Sister Mary said, for 29 years. And one of the reasons it is still here after 29 years is because the incredible culture that has been created within this organization, not only with the apprentices, our young men that we work with, but with our staff, with our families, with the community around us. creating that culture. It's a mentoring program, so you literally see generations of families in our program. And whenever I go in, it's like literally a family reunion. I see grandparent along with parent, along with child, all of which have moved through the program in one way or another. And so our culture setting, things like having soul names, meditation is part of what we do. We have what we call here our shield of faith. These are our values that we function by. All of that is the culture we have created to really thrive in an area that generally has just been plagued with conflict and challenges. We have a very different experience in the same place. We experience the lotus blooming in that place of challenge. And so, yeah, my job is to share that. We share that with other groups. We share it with school groups as well as organizations, workforce development, and really building community. We were just actually casually having this conversation before this talk started today is so incredibly essential to stress management as well. We all desire collective connection. We want to feel connected as human beings on the most basic level. So first we have to connect to ourselves and connect to one another. And that's actually part of our process as well. That's what we share with our young men. It's also what we share with the groups that we work with. Yes, I'm excited to be here with you today. I'm sorry I start talking about our
No,
work and
that's such
I
a
get off
beautiful,
topic.
that's actually a beautiful transition
Great.
into the conversation we're going to have, because it's very important. And we are talking about self-management as the ability to manage one's emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. And specifically in different situations. And like you said, there are so many situations arising, but living life and being human is just, you're going to deal with different situations where you're going to have to manage your emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. And so this is a skill that is essential for especially children to develop, but also even us as adults, we're still working on developing this skill. And so because of that, do you mind sharing your personal philosophies for really connecting to the importance of self management through stress management?
Absolutely. One of the things we try to do at Life Pieces, Meg, may I say Sister Meg, or you prefer Meg? Which do you prefer?
Whatever you prefer. I love both.
Meg? One of the things we try to do is elevate the solution. We're living in a time where everything is so distracted that you're so focused on the negativity, you're focused on the stress, you're focused. There's something that my mama told me way back. I'm from New Orleans originally, and she says, some of the best gifts have the ugliest wrapping. And so, talking about curiosity today, is that when that stress hits you, what that is that's your opportunity to awake. At Life Pieces, we have a saying, Sister Bright Spirit, you want to share it? What's our saying? When
We are awakened to a sense of purpose, our power is limitless.
and let's remember, and Sister Aika, put that in the chat. When
Absolutely.
we are awakened to a sense of purpose, our power is limitless. And so what has to happen is that when we are on this journey towards our purpose, especially as it pertains to extending a legacy of competence to our children, and then definitely, I don't care where you're from. I don't care if it's the most affluent community that you're teaching in or the most challenging community as we do that we're in. We're all human beings. We all have our challenges. We all have our stuff. And so it's so important as educators is for us to not necessarily imbibe the negativity, to drink it and to say, I am the stress, to basically look at it, uncover it. Why is this making me feel like this? And go on a journey, as we say at Life Pieces and Color Me Community, go on a journey in your soul bag. And there you will find gems that will help you understand what you're feeling, why you're feeling it. Hopefully, you'll even whatever pain that you might feel, where it could connect to your passion, that could then connect to your purpose. So it's awakening. And sometimes stress is that nudge that could be very uncomfortable when you're getting that last few minutes in before 5 o'clock to wake up in the morning and your partner or whatever's coming to wake you up, you gotta go. it's sometimes stress can just be that awakening opportunity. And so what we do, our philosophy is look at this as an opportunity to be curious and to discover gems that you can carry forth into, and when I say divine purpose, I'm not speaking religiously. I'm saying that ultimate your reason for being and your reason for being educators. And so be on that journey. And if that if you're on that journey and you're like, maybe this isn't for me, the best thing to do is to step aside and do no harm. That's the best thing to do. I'll tell you that right now, because our children really need, our young people need those of us who have the courage and the willingness to push through so that we can be there for them and share those gems with them so that they can go on in life. So that's my philosophy.
I think that
Right.
I think that also is an important piece when we're talking specifically about youth. The way that self-management and stress management looks in youth is very different from how it looks for adults. I mean, just obviously it's going to be a completely different approach. So could you explain how self-management or stress management differs in youth as opposed to adults?
I'll leave that to Bright Spirit.
I see you looking at me, Sister Mary. Sure. Well, to be honest with you, it doesn't look very different from my standpoint. It might be that the practice is adapted to a particular age group and their developmental ability, but ultimately, we're looking at self-mastery. If it's for ourselves individually as a teacher, or if it's supporting our young men in finding that self-mastery within themselves. And it's things as basic as working with breath or mind-body connection. These are things that the exercises may look different for different age groups. I would not ask my kindergarten class to sit in meditation for 30 minutes because it would just be insanity. But it's really the same principles for me, but it is adapted to, what's appropriate and meeting youth where they are and giving them tools at whatever place that they're ready for. But yeah, and as far as philosophy related to it, I also agree that when there's a challenge, it's challenging you to deeper self-mastery, period. If you're being triggered, that trigger is something within you that is asking to be looked at more deeply. People don't really want to hear that. They are very happy to either be in a victim mindset or look at the outside and say you are making me feel this way, but then you're giving away your power. And at Life Pieces and through our Color Me community workshops, we are very clear your power is your thoughts, your words, and your actions determine your destiny. No one has power over your thoughts but you. Nobody has power over your words but yourself and your actions. And so we're always looking at being sovereign in that way and taking responsibility and accountability for our own state of being. And it is being challenged right now because there are some intense triggers that are showing up in so many aspects of the world. And for me, at this moment in time, something like self care, meditation, mindfulness are not nice little things you can do to make you feel good. It's essential. It's as essential as
Definitely.
brushing your teeth
Yeah,
every day. Why do you brush your teeth every day? You need that hygiene so that your teeth sustain over time. You have to take time to slow down. Everything is
yeah,
so fast-paced right now. And it could be
yeah.
as simple as pause or a breath. But if you don't take that time to synchronize mind and body and to pause and to be able to create a space between a stimulus, a trigger, and your reaction,
Yeah.
Mhm.
what are we
I-
teaching each other at the end of the day? I don't care
Right.
what your beliefs are. If you are unable to manage yourself, that
Yeah,
is ultimately what you're teaching at the end of the day, even if you have a righteous philosophy. Sister Mary, I'm sorry. Here
No, I love Jenna's question. Uh, Jenna's question
Yeah,
in
just
chat.
yeah, so just to expand upon that, Jenna was, elaborating upon the fact that that is something that needs to be fostered within children and within ourselves as adults. So how do you all work on getting them to recognize that, and then how do
Yeah.
y'all kind of guide them to those aha moments where they see, wait a second, I did sit and meditate for 5 minutes, and I do have time between my reaction and the experience that I'm facing.
Yeah.
How do
Yeah,
y'all
so
guide them toward that?
from our 3-year-olds all the way up, we have what we call our Color Me Community soul bags. And this is something that the children create, the teenagers create. We go on, we create this. And it's this interesting thing. It's three-dimensional. And basically we help them grow into understanding over time, oh, this is how people see me on the outside, but this is who I truly am. And you don't know who that is unless you get to know me. And this is everything that's going inside. And that you get to a point where you can control what it is that you let inside. So having some activities sometimes where they get to like it can almost it might almost be like a little science project for some, where it's like what pours in, and then well, what can you do in order to, how do you one of the things for our high schoolers, we say you can accept, you can reject, but then you have to kind of respect where other people might be. That's more advanced. That's because like you punch me in the face, I'm not going to respect you. You know, with the little ones, and it depends on what age group you're working with when you talk about how you foster what kind of introspection. Or we have green on our shield of faith, which is meditation. And so when we have, and I know inspired teaching, y'all have a plethora of activities. So really that above the line, below the line, I'm going to take that tool. I love it because literally that's time where that child could go on the side. It's not a punishment corner. It's going into the green. You can draw, you can paint, you can tape your voice, and then let's hear your voice back. It does take some staffing. And you have to take some hands on board that are trained to do that, to work them through that process. So something as simple as having your green zone where they can create, where they can, and then possibly do that beautiful line that you had there to think and work through it. There you have it.
And I,
That's
I love what you said, Mary, about it being like a science experiment. I feel that way as well. If you're
Yeah.
if you're going to do something as simple as 3 deep breaths with your children to get them to refocus and be present again, before you do it, ask them to mentally ask themselves, how do I feel physically right now on a scale of 1 to 5? How do I feel mentally, emotionally, spiritually? You can have them rate all of those things, do the 3 deep breaths, and then rate it again. Let them discover for themselves the shift and the change that happens when they use these tools. If we just
Yeah.
tell them, it's going to do nothing. They have to experience it for themselves and go on their own personal journey of self-awareness. So that could be through a writing prompt and asking them questions about what they're experiencing internally. It's really taking the time to focus on the inner world and giving them that opportunity to focus on the inner world. And then it can be, you're on this adventure together. You're not here to prove to them this is what works and we're right. It's like, hey,
And,
here's,
and
let's try it and
that's
you let
it.
me know how it works.
And step one, don't lash out. Don't lash out because don't overreact. That's one of the things we always have to work with our children. What did you just do? What did you do? You're going to go into meditation corner. And then all of a sudden you've made meditation corner a really not happy place. And
Right.
so it's working with ourselves to not allow whatever stress we're feeling to be regurgitated on our students, to hold it steady in the middle.
Absolutely. This kind of leads me to our next question. As we have seen, and as the media is showing us, research is reporting, and we have a lot of anecdotal evidence being educators and being in this realm. basically saying that the youth are really struggling right now and stress is very high. Behaviors in schools are quite, rampant and challenging. And so, what do you feel, or what is your sense of where this is coming from?
We, we, all of us as human beings, we take in information through our eyes, our smell, what we eat, what we hear, what we feel externally and internally. Unfortunately, 24/7, our young people have in their hands something that's assassinating their spirits, and that's their cell phones on an ongoing basis. And now we have media that feeds and feeds, and that celebrates fighting and celebrates arguing, and then you can videotape it. So we have quite the conundrum right now because our children are literally walking around with devices that can kill their spirit, and we have an unfortunate ecosystem that is that's crashing in on them. And so I do believe that it's never our children alone. Our children come to us purely, beautifully, whole, complete. And it's what they're taking in within their environments that's causing it. So when you have those babies, when you have those children, when you have them coming into your space, is more of a reason that we do our work because we're soldiers. Educators are soldiers on the front line, soldiers of peace, soldiers of hope. And self-care is a must for us because you also are being inundated with all of this and it's making you feel some kind of way. So that's what I would say. It's from everything in our ecosystem, but that device in their hand 24/7, they're getting fed it.
That is completely accurate, and I think we there's so much conversation about this, and I think that we are working together in community with each other to try to combat that and to really uplift these children so that they're, like you said, so that their spirit is not assassinated by what they're encountering digitally and the things that they're facing that we never had to deal with as children.
Yeah,
This is definitely new terrain that we're
yeah,
navigating.
yeah.
But
Create opportunities for them to laugh. Create
right, yeah,
opportunities for them to laugh. You were talking about this, Sister Meg, early on, that with everything going on, oh, is it okay that I'm laughing and smiling and happy with my loved ones while the world is, you better laugh and smile, you better dance, you better go out and have that lunch with your girlfriends and chit chat or whatever else so that you could feed your soul. And then you bring that to your children in the classroom. Give
then
them
you show up.
opportunities
Yep,
to laugh.
definitely. We've been talking a lot about self-management being deeply connected and tied to self-awareness and being able to identify the clues that your body is giving you, your inner voice and what's how you're feeling in an unhealthy situation. Can you tell us some effective ways that you've seen educators build this self-awareness in the young people that they're working with?
Yeah,
Right, Spirit?
absolutely. What we do specifically at Life Pieces to Masterpieces is we focus on what we call body energy. And it's something that all of our young men are very, very familiar. You say body energy, and they know exactly what you're talking about. And we just want them to become aware of their body energy at any time. And it could be just to notice, like, is your body energy tired? Are you engaged? Are you listening? All the different ways your body language also speaks out. We want them to become aware of that, and we also use our body energy intentionally to celebrate one another when we have the courage or vulnerability to speak up and share our thoughts and ideas. We clap and we hoot and we holler and we share, and we're being intentional with our body energy. And then in the classroom, as far as like classroom management goes, we love Tibetan singing bowls where we are. So if you've ever played a Tibetan singing bowl, When you hear the gong at any time, the young men know we stop what we're doing, we take a deep breath in, we take a deep breath out, and then we refocus on whatever needs to be done at that time. And it teaches them the power of pausing, even in the middle of great activity, to be able to be centered in whatever they're doing. And there's all types of exercises related to mind-body connection. So it could be as simple as one that we did in my master's program, which is contemplative education, which I used to love, was uh, there are different ways to get your mind and body to synchronize together, and your breath is the best vehicle for that. So we would do something called inspiration as you heal. I'm sorry, inspired as you inhale, and then as you exhale, you express. So you could only move on your exhale. So you like inhale, you pause, you take a deep breath in, and then exhale, you move until your breath stops, and then you stop. And then you inhale again. And you can only do very simple movements too, because we didn't want it to be complicated. So as you exhale, you might just walk forward. And as soon as your breath stops, you also stop. Then you inhale again. You could either move forward, or you could turn your body, or you could sit down, but it could be one movement on one exhale. And so these
Yeah.
little experiential exercises you can do to start getting our young people used to paying attention to their mind and their body synchronizing together and becoming
Right.
aware of their body energy.
Right. And for them to own it, because so often as adults, we're like, sit down, be quiet, come here, do whatever. So when you
Mhm.
ring the bowl, and so just like you can say body energy to celebrate, goes, it could be cacophony, ring the bowl, brothers, body energy. So that they remember I have the thoughts, words, and actions to comport myself. I'm not a slave. So I just sit down, go to the side, be quiet, sit down. No, 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 no. Help them remember their power to comport themselves.
Um, Sister Bright Spirit, you mentioned that you have a master's in contemplative education, which I am just so enthralled with. I just want to know so much about it. But could you tell us a little bit about what that is? And then also, could you tell us why you think it's an important part of educating the whole child?
Sure, yeah. So a contemplative education. Well, I personally got my degree from Naropa University. It was the first Buddhist accredited university in the United States. But I'm not Buddhist, and you were not required to be Buddhist. It really was focused on teachers, and the idea was that we had to start looking at our internal life and how that impacted our career and what we do in the classroom. So if you're stressed out and you're angry and you got all this stuff going on and you're not taking time to really deal with those things and to bring some healing or nurturing or self-awareness or loving kindness to that, you're going to bring that in and it's going to spill out into the classroom. So in our program, it's largely focused on bringing your internal world into your experience and being aware of what your internal world is. So we did a lot of meditation, mindfulness, space awareness techniques. And the idea for us was not in our particular program to teach our children to do the same. The idea was you teach who you are more than anything else that you do. I mean, you could be talking about math, you could be talking about social studies, science, but what they're really learning is through your presence. And so by developing and cultivating our own presence, our own state of being, we through our own presence are teaching a different way of being to our children. And then those that do bring contemplative education into the classroom with students often do that through, writing exercises for them to become aware of their internal world, meditation exercises, mindfulness exercises, all the things that we've been talking about, all these different self-care techniques for us to start um, really having a better understanding of what's happening within us and how that impacts our reality around us. And so there was a lot of, in my particular program, it was a lot of focus on the teacher and the importance of the resiliency of the teacher. You're so impactful in that room. And I know everything around you may not give you the importance that you deserve in that space, but I swear it's the hardest job in the world. It demands your entire being to be authentic, connected, and grounded in a loving place to be able to share that with your students. And I mean, it feels like it's a lot to ask, but at the end of the day, that's what we all need individually to feel happy and well and whole within ourselves. So it's a calling. I feel teaching is a calling for people who are on the path of their own evolution. Like my master's, I had to do a thesis, and mine was all focused on contemplative education being a path to oneness. So, for example, for me, if there's a student that would trigger me, it's usually the student whose name you have to say 20 times in an hour, again and again. You're like, so and so, I asked you to please take a seat, or whatever it is, you have to continue to say their name. That person would reveal to me, and what it would reveal to me was the aspects of myself that I didn't embrace. And so my meditation practice, my loving kindness practice, the different things that we did in our program were really revealing to me that if I could find compassion for that aspect of myself, I could connect to this student in such a deeper way. And when I started doing that work, it was inevitable by the end of the year that that student and me were the tightest out of all of the kids in the class, because we would develop such a rich, true unconditional relationship, by me being able to recognize if you're triggering me, then that's something, there's an opportunity for growth for me in that situation. Um, I know easier said than done sometimes, but what I do find, again, if you're focused on the student, it's really hard. If you're like, no, but they keep doing this thing, and no, figure out, get curious, right? That's what we're talking about today. Get curious. Why am I so triggered by this student? Gosh, well, they're such a mess and they never even finished their work. And it's like, okay, well, sometimes am I a mess? Are there things that I don't finish that I need to finish? And I kind of don't like that side of myself. Those are parts of myself that I don't embrace. And so when I see it in another person, I get triggered. And so it's like, okay, well, how can I develop a loving kindness within myself about those aspects? And when I do, and then I recognize them in another human being, I can find loving kindness for them because I've already done that work for myself. So in my experience, and I think there are now probably various forms of contemplative education that are out there, but it's really focused on your own development within yourself and how that then impacts you as impacts the class that you're teaching.
I agree. And Jenna was saying in the chat that she never thought about that before, but when she's thinking about situations with challenging student experiences, what you're saying rings true. And I would say the same, when you've established relationship, meeting those kids is much less of a tumultuous experience because you've established that respect, that mutual respect for each other. So expanding upon that, when we're talking about stress management, would you mind leading us in maybe one or two of your favorites that you like to do for stress management with youth or adults?
Hmm. Sister Mary, do you have anything you want me to jump in?
In terms of a practice, what we
A
do?
practice, yeah, a practice for stress management.
Absolutely. Well, I think you go for it, Aitha. This is your bailiwick, Bright
Uh,
Spirit.
okay. All right. I'm going to share loving kindness practice
Yeah,
because
I love it. I love loving kindness.
as a teacher, I have found that has been the most potent practice that I could possibly do. Um, and the practice is quite simple. And I'm sure if you go on YouTube or look it up, there are a variety of teachers that have guided meditations in this practice. But what it basically focuses on is typically four different parts. It starts off with you sitting, being focused on your breath and coming back into the present moment. So you're just being with your breath for a little bit of time to just practice being fully present to the sensation of your breath moving in and out of your body. So we're
Sister
developing,
Bright Spirit, do you want to give the age group?
oh, the age group to do this?
Uh-huh.
I think you can do this with most, I mean, with many age groups, it's just do it for shorter periods of time. You have to
Right.
understand where people are, and maybe you break it up and you don't do all four stages if they're very young. And you might just start off with the first step, and then maybe you build on the next day and do the second step. Meditation is a practice. It's like building a muscle. So you got to continue to practice to be able to cultivate that ability to do it for longer periods and to develop that focus and concentration over time. But the first step is to really focus on sending yourself loving kindness. You wish, and people typically pick three things that they're going to wish for, and it can be really up to you what you want that to be. But typically they will say, "May I be happy." And like repeat that to yourself in your mind and use your breath to charge that energy. Like, may I truly be happy? May I truly be at peace? And continuously, you're just taking your time, you're breathing naturally, but with each breath you're charging that energy and that feeling to yourself. May I be at peace. And then you would ask yourself, or you would say to yourself, may I be at ease? Because there's so much anxiety, there's so much stress that people are experiencing. So you're asking for, you are saying to yourself that I am wishing myself to be happy. I'm wishing for myself to be at peace. I'm wishing for myself to be at ease. And you take your time with those three things in your mind, repeating them until you truly feel them in your body. Next, you focus on somebody you really love, okay? Somebody who you already feel a deep, heartfelt connection with. Bring them to your mind and think of them and say, may they be happy, may they be at peace, and may they be at ease. And repeat each one of those things for a time. The third step is to think of somebody neutral, somebody that you know, but you don't have a very strong charge towards. Maybe it's the person at the grocery store that you see all of the time. You know them, you don't really know their name, but you kind of know who they are. Think of somebody neutral and focus on them. Send them. And really, you can only send if after you've done it for yourself, right? Because you got to recharge and share. You fill from your cup that is fulleth. You cannot give away something you don't have. So after you've had that loving kindness, you say, may they be happy, may they be at peace, may they be at ease. And now the most difficult piece, and you might have to work on this for quite some time, is I want you to think of someone who really triggers you or you have a personal challenge with at this time. And you think of them, bring them to your mind, and truly from your heart, may they be happy, may they be at peace, may they be at ease. And when you do this practice, it transforms everything for you. Like that has been my personal experience. Don't take my word for it. You try it. Contact me, asuri@lifepieces.org. Tell me if it worked for you, because I'm telling you, when you can start cultivating for those that trigger you the most, a desire for them to be happy, at peace. Think of the people in our world today. Could be somebody you would see on the television if you turned on your TV. That triggers you deeply for whatever reason. How might the world change if they were truly happy, if they were truly at peace and truly at ease, right? And typically, what you find is the aspects of them you can't stand are these triggers that are asking you to get curious for yourself of where is that true for me? When am I like this person? Maybe there's some aspect of you that's like this person, or maybe it's a repeated pattern of something that triggers you. This has happened to you since childhood. This type of personality triggers me. Get curious about it. And when you can start sending love to yourself and to those individuals, it will transform the way you show up in the world. And that's all we have power over, is the way that we show up for ourselves. And then when you were a teacher, you're a magnifier, because the way you show up is now impacting all these other lives that are around you. So yeah, loving kindness is my favorite. Oh, thank you, Sister Mary. She put my email address in there. So yes,
Yeah,
let me know if you
yeah.
try it. I love
No,
to hear.
I just wanted to, I mean, Jenna, we got to do this more often, Jenna. I like us working together. We got to do this again. Um, yeah, when we do the loving kindness, usually we are in a circle. The prompts are given verbally, the prompts, but their responses are to themselves. They do not
Like a
respond loud.
guided meditation
Right.
format.
But when we go, sometimes when we go around, and we've seen it very powerfully with a group of young adults, where quite literally they begin to share. And when I came to this, I thought about this, and sometimes that gets to some deeper stuff that we have to work through, and then, it's not, it's loving kindness when you get to who triggers you, that's a tough one.
It is, and it's been amazing to see what has shown up for people when we've done this in groups. You know, it can get
Yeah.
emotional. It can get emotional. People suddenly so much emotion about that situation comes up. But what I have found is that there's like at least the beginnings of this sense of peace in a place that they only felt conflict before. So if we want to see peace in the world, you got to create peace within yourself. It's just the law of the land. It's the way things work. So this self-management and stress management is the way that we can create peace in the world right now, because I know it is so inundated. We are so inundated with what is happening, and you can feel helpless. Like, what can I do? Do I work? Do I focus on this or this or this or this? And it's all these different things. And
Mhm.
I'm telling you, what you can do is cultivate your inner peace. Because,
Yes. Yes. Being able to respond when you're in situations of overwhelm and
yeah.
when you're just in smaller situations that
Oh
also
my,
require stress management.
Meg, I gotta ask Sister Mary to share a story right now because you said how to respond in moments of overwhelm. Sister Mary, will you share what happened at a particular school you were visiting?
Oh, I don't recommend that everybody does this.
No,
Yeah,
but just
it was
you
at a
just got to
high,
understand who this woman is.
it was at, oh goodness. It was at a high school and it was getting very intense. And it was some strong guys that they literally would have just completely, beat up on each other and everybody was crowding around. And security was screaming and the behavioral folks were screaming and saying, move whatever. And I started singing.
At the
I
top of her
started
lungs.
I started singing loud. I have hope when trouble comes my way. Now, my brother, you don't want to do that. I have hope, yes, since whatever has come to stay. Oh no, now come on, you know you need to go over whatever, whatever. They were shocked. So the first thing was like, what the? And so then that gave that gave the disciplinarians time. Oh, let's move over here. I have hope. Oh, and they're like, who is this crazy old woman singing in the hallway? And everybody started, and I even had I even had a little profanity. Now, who's that be? What the F? Oh, and I was looking, I put on a performance for life because I did not want anybody to get hurt. And yeah, so
I love
yeah,
that story. What a
so there
story.
you go. Art
This was
saved
last week. So this is real time, folks.
lives.
This is real
Last
Art
week.
time.
saves lives.
Wow. What a
I just didn't know what
timely.
else to do. The kid, they were much bigger than I. Even the disciplinarians, they were all in it. Negro, da da da. And the security,
Mhm.
and I'm have to call blah, 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 blah. And I just thank goodness for a loud voice from New Orleans singing old spiritual. Cause I'm like, I was like, oh, hell no. This isn't gonna
Yeah.
happen in front of me. I'm not gonna have these brothers kill themselves in front of me. And so,
Right.
yeah. And to this day, went back and said, you know that woman from Life Pieces to Masterpieces, she started singing. So now we're
You
having
made
a
your mark.
conversation.
You made your mark.
I said, look, that's just me. There's more of us. No.
But
I love
so
that.
Sister Mary is somebody who is very dedicated to her self practice. And this is an extraordinary example, I
I just
admit.
didn't want to see
But it's an
anybody else beat up.
example of choosing a response versus all of the people around her that were supposed to
What?
be de-escalating the situation. They themselves, their energy was feeding it. And
Right.
that's what you don't want to be doing. That's what you want to be masterful about what you're choosing to put forward. And to do that, you have to cultivate your inner world.
You would
Absolutely.
bring that up. We did not practice that at all. She brought
Yeah,
that
sorry,
up.
that was a
I
spontaneous
love that.
throw in.
This is just really, we were talking about curiosity earlier, and this is really sparking so much curiosity for me, because I do wonder if we had people who had the framing of mind to respond in that way more frequently, rather than the yelling and the bolstering and the posturing and all of it, how frequently that would change and shift the energy of the situation that's happening, and really level things out,
It
you
would be a
know?
different world. It would be a different,
Yeah,
we'd have peace. We'd have joy.
truly, truly.
You
I,
know,
I
I
I do
mean,
believe that.
yeah.
It does make all the difference. I remember teaching in the classroom. I was teaching second grade, and a bee got into the classroom, and
Mm,
then it was like, chaos erupted.
chaos. Yeah.
And I pulled out my Tibetan singing bowl. I'm telling you, teachers, best teaching tool ever, because they find it like magical. So when you play it, they're like, oh. So I played the bowl. I played the bowl and they all stopped. And I said, all right, let's take our deep breath in. Let's take a deep breath out. And now I said that the bee is only going to attack you if it feels threatened. So I want all of us to send the bee energy saying that we mean you no harm and we just would like you to go. And we opened the window and everybody got quiet. I said, everybody sends your love to the bee. And that bee left the room. And I'm telling you, like that was a moment where those kids were like, whoa, like they were like, how did that happen? And it was, again, it's only if you're practicing that is that going to even come to your mind as an
Yes.
option in that moment.
Yes.
And so you have to cultivate your own spaciousness between trigger and response. And there's a
Absolutely.
space in between that really starts to get more profound the longer you practice things like meditation and mindfulness for yourself. So,
And it
y-
just naturally bleeds into those around you, because you're modeling for them.
you,
So
yes,
that's so beautiful. Well, that brings us to our final and, of course, favorite question that we have for every webinar. What are you both curious about right now?
Huh.
a good
I'm
one.
curious about all the people on the screen. I'm curious about Carliana. Curious about Tiana. And is it Ada that joined us as A? I'm curious about Denise. I'm curious about Emily. I'm curious. I'm very curious about the energy that's here. And really, Jenna, I think I'm just falling in love with you all over again. I do remember you, and we have to go and have coffee or tea.
Yes,
We
we
need
do.
to be together.
Yes, we do.
And Meg, I'm really curious about you with your whole New Orleans thing. So I'm curious
Yes.
about the energy that has joined us in this moment in time. I wish I could hear a beep or something or a little note or I'm curious. That's what I'm curious about. Who are you people? Ah.
Hi, hi, good night. I working with kids when 1 year, and I think so in my classroom I had good energy. I had too much energy. I had more energy
There's
when the
no
kids
such thing.
and I not drink coffee. I had energy for me, for my body. And then my classroom is all tiny, is also happy. The kids is dance and sing, and I have something behavior, but the rest and my kids, you told about for the technology, for the same phone and my classroom, I had the politics and my classroom no had technology. O sea, yes, had and no had. Solely use the music, but not put the screen for the kids. And me told when the parents, please, please, not put a phone in the house, not put in tablets in the house, please. For the kids, sometimes me putting my phone here and all kids, oh my god, oh my god, and I say, no, you have 1 year, play, use your imagination, enjoy, and I think so, and the parents know the energy scene is good in my classroom when the kids comment is lies, is so hot with me, and I think so I have good energy feel, and I enjoy it all to you say for the scene and the the stuff that thank you for sharing all you anecdotes.
Wow, wow, wow. Oh my goodness, I'm seeing in the chat. Oh, my curiosity is being, well, first of all, Tiana, I hear you, I see you. I'm curious about what's going on in the world, and that's followed by Ada. I'm curious about my new redacted country. Oh my goodness.
Redeclared, I think.
My new what? Oh, redeclared. Oh, redeclared. Redeclared country. Is it
Wow.
Biafra in West Africa?
I'm curious about that now too. I
I'm
know
Me
pretty much
curious.
about
too.
it.
Me too.
Ada, can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, Ada is is one of our
Um,
fellows from this summer's teaching with improvisation program. So Ada, yes, welcome. We'd love to
Yeah.
hear from you.
Thank you, Carliana, for your response. I mean, really, that was just, oh gosh. But yes, is it Ada?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Good
Ada,
evening. Good evening, all. I'm sorry I
evening.
came in a little late, but I'm just curious about all of the things happening. But the main important one is my new country that was declared in Finland because we are being marginalized, we are being killed. The Christians back home, they are being killed, slaughtered every day, and the world does not want to say anything about it. We are like before we were in existence since 1967 to 1970, we had a Biafra war with Nigeria then. And now we redeclared it as a sovereign nation. So we are trying to protect it. The same thing happening in Ukraine is the thing happening back home. But no one wants to say anything about it because they want
It's a
our
black
resources.
country.
Yeah, they want our resources. It's in Africa.
Yeah, that's what I know.
It's in Africa, yeah.
Yeah,
So they
that's why they're not saying anything about it.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
everybody
So
can identify to the yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so
Oh, not everybody, but you know what I'm saying.
yeah, so they have been killing the Christians all back home for a long time, but right now we are trying to defend our country because it's now a nation. We have it as a young nation. We're trying to be recognized by the other countries around us. So I'm curious on what is going to happen in future because I am their foreign affairs minister. So I've been like working so hard to make sure that our nation is recognized in all parts of the world. So I'm curious about
I've
that.
taken note, and I'm curious, and I'm going to do my homework
Yeah.
because what I see on the media
Will
here.
be too.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you,
It's
thank
nice to
you.
see you all. Thank you, Miss
Oh,
Alida, Miss
great
Jana.
seeing you, great seeing you. And then Tiana, oh, Tiana has a. I'm curious about what's going on in the world. You want to talk to me a little bit more, Tiana, or you prefer just to do the chat? Yeah, hi. You know, we have at Life Pieces, it's similar, it's universal principles. We have a little stick man, and on one side is anger, greed, and ignorance, the opposite, courage, compassion, and wisdom. And that our thoughts, words, and actions help us navigate. And so when you see just this bubbling up of anger, that is, I have to be right. And so you have, you want to, you will fight to the death to be right. You brought that out beautifully. I love that simple line. That is just, I have to have that tool that you shared earlier. And then greed, I have to have it. I want it. I want all of it. Control, power, anger, greed, and ignorance. I don't know and I don't want to know. And even though I know, I don't want to know because that'll allow me to do whatever it is I want to do. And that through our thoughts, words, and actions, we could translate anger into courage because it takes courage to admit when you're wrong. And it takes courage to it takes courage to actually listen to others. You can change greed into compassion. That's a tough one because that's shared humanity. That's shared. People have told us that life pieces, oh, that's too soft. Shared humanity, that's too soft. Oh no, baby. Even those people who read the Bible, it says that the poor be with you always. You know why? Because it's hard for human beings to share. And we're seeing that. And so compassion is where you truly care for others. And then ignorance, wisdom, we say wisdom is this combination of knowledge and compassion coming together. So what you're seeing, Tiana, is it Tiana or Tiana? I prefer
Tiana.
I'm in class also. Okay. Tiana, what you're seeing, my dearest Tiana, you're seeing an overflow of the anger, greed, and ignorance that's out of control, that's coming from humanity. And it is humanity. Sometimes you would think it's animals, but animals are even better than what we're seeing human beings do. And so that is happening in the world. So the big question is, what are you going to do? You're an educator, you're in class now. What are you going to do? And so coming to inspire teaching, getting tools, taking the tools that both Meg and Sister Meg and Sister Jenna shared to try to navigate it. We have to dig down deep to find our peace and dig deeply to find the beautiful jewels that's inside of this ugly wrapped gift that we've been served. And take control, be curious, and choose how you want to show up in the world. That's coming from an almost 62-year-old woman with a lot of Miss Clairol. That's the only reason why you see black. Um, yeah. I wish, honestly, I wish we could cloak each other, but we have to fight in our way, in our smart way. We have to fight. Every day you show up for your children, every day you show up for yourself. Find your peace, find your joy, find your happiness, find your laughter. Find your laughter. Again, I'm actually kind of Buddhist, but I love my Christian friends who they'll quote this one quote about that basically Jehovah or God prepares a table in the presence of your enemy. How you could just sit down and I just love the visual of that, even though my beliefs are all over the place. But imagine sitting down, having a good supper in the presence of your enemy. That's extraordinary. That's powerful. And that's what we have to be able to do with our students, with ourselves, and our loved ones.
In loving kindness.
And loving kindness. And guess what? Wish them peace. Wish them happiness. Wish them ease. And that will get rid of any resentment because you don't want to carry that resentment. See, that's what's going to beat us. If we imbibe everything that's coming through the radio and on our phone, that's going to get us. That's the resentment. That's the anger, greed, and ignorance. We get caught all up in it. Ooh, but if we lean into courage, compassion, and wisdom, sweetheart, the gift is there.
Would anybody else like to share about their curiosity before we wrap it up?
Miss Denise and my canine.
Or Emily.
Oh, Emily. Oh, Emily. I think they're still with us.
I have so many things that I'm curious about after all the beautiful things that were shared today, but I am realizing that I want to share a poem with you all here. That is, oh, Emily said in the chat that she's dealing with a 7-year-old. We totally understand, Emily. Yes, there's that. But this poem was coming to me. I'm putting it in the chat. It's very short, but it feels like it's very short and very simple. But I'm thinking about it with all the things we've shared today. It's by Gregory Orr, and it's called To Be Alive. To be alive, not just the carcass, but the spark. That's crudely put, but if we're not supposed to dance, why all this music? And it just came to me when I was thinking about hearing about the singing in the hallways, and I think about it often. If we listen and we're attuned to it, there is so much music. This weekend I was walking at this park near me called Huntley Meadows, and all of the spring peepers, all the frogs were singing, and I always think about this poem when I hear them singing too. That in spite of all of the overwhelm, all of the things that are going on in the world, if we listen very closely, there is this music, and how do we find the space to be able to dance? So I just want to thank our speakers so much for joining us tonight to share so much with us and help us think about dancing.
Yes,
That was
beautiful.
a drop the mic. That was a drop the mic poem.
Yes.
I love it. I love it.
Out.
Thank you so much for having us. This has been really great, and I'm so glad, Sister Mary, you opened up the floor so we get to meet some of these other beautiful faces from all over that are connecting with us today. It's been a really great experience.
Yes.
Yes, thank you for everything. Thank you for the story. I had tomorrow in my school, I have more energy, see, and more good energy and more goodbye and say, oh my God, I sing with uglies and no scream more. Only you fight. Woo! And change. And thank you, Miss Mary.
Perfect. You got it.